The desert sun hung low over the sprawling military base, painting the sand in hues of gold and blood orange. Troops moved with precision, engines roared, and the scent of fuel mixed with dust in the air. Among the personnel, Lieutenant Amelia, Ace. Harper walked calmly, clipboard in hand, checking schedules and equipment with a practiced eye. She appeared to be just another logistics officer, blending in with the world around her, efficient, focused, and largely invisible. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight bun, her uniform spotless, and yet beneath the quiet exterior was a mind trained for precision and adrenaline. Quick pause, comment where you're watching from, and if you love these stories, hit subscribe. Now, the next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. The tranquility shattered when an urgent radio transmission crackled across the base. Navy SEAL Captain Marcus Hawk. Donovan's voice was tense, demanding immediate air support. "We're pinned down! I need a combat pilot now!" His words cut through the hum of engines like a blade. The crisis was clear. If no one responded, the team would be overwhelmed by enemy forces entrenched just beyond the valley. Lives hung in the balance. Panic spread through the control room and nearby personnel. Voices overlapping, doubts raised. Some muttered under their breath, "Who's going to fly? It's a suicide mission." Even Amelia's heart thumped in her chest, recalling her first deployment when a mission she had trained for ended in disaster due to unforeseen complications. The memory of failing to save a teammate resurfaced, making her momentarily freeze. Then, as the radio demanded again, she rose. Her voice was steady, confident, cutting through the chatter. "Captain. Donovan, I can take the run. I've flown combat sorties before." A hush fell. Eyes widened. Whispers erupted. "Wait, what? She's a logistics officer." It wasn't arrogance. It was quiet determination born from countless hours in flight simulators, rigorous training, and a love for the sky that refused to be sidelined. The preparations began in a blur of mechanical precision. Amelia moved to the hangar where the A-10 Warthog waited, its metallic frame gleaming under harsh lights. Technicians double-checked her weapons systems, the GAU-8 Avenger cannon, precision-guided munitions, and the targeting software. Each switch, each calibration heightened the tension. The desert wind howled outside, sand whipping past the open hangar doors, carrying the distant sounds of battle. She strapped herself into the cockpit, tightening harnesses, adjusting oxygen masks, and checking communication lines. Breath slowed, time stretched. Every second carried weight, every beep and click a countdown to fate. Engines roared to life, shaking the hangar and sending vibrations up her spine. The sky above promised danger. Radar signals of enemy anti-aircraft positions lit up her instruments like constellations of death. She pushed forward, taxiing down the runway, each wheel strike a drumbeat of inevitability. As the Warthog lifted into the dusky sky, adrenaline coursed through her veins, sharpening every sense. Then, she dove into the valley below, following the radio coordinates with uncanny precision. Explosions erupted around her as enemy fire tore through sand and rock, but Amelia maneuvered with grace, skimming treetops and ridges, dodging missiles that streaked like fiery serpents. She fired the cannon, each burst precise, neutralizing artillery and bunkers. Her voice guided the SEALs through radio channels. "Move left! I've got the ridge covered! Hold your position!" Every command was a lifeline, every movement calculated, every second stretching the limits of human capability. The decisive moment arrived when an enemy machine gun nest threatened to pin down the SEAL team completely. Amelia aligned her aircraft, steadied her aim, and released the ordnance. Silence followed. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, a chain of explosions rocked the valley as the enemy position was obliterated. The impossible had been done. The SEALs could advance, and the team's survival was assured. Back at the base, the control room erupted. Shocked exclamations, relieved cheers, and incredulous laughter filled the air. Captain Donovan shook his head, disbelief etched into his features. I can't believe it. She saved them," he muttered. The SEALs themselves were speechless, exchanging stunned glances before acknowledging her heroism with nods of respect. Yet Amelia remained calm, humble, her hands loosening the straps of her harness. "Someone had to," she said quietly, her eyes scanning the horizon where the battle had raged. No fanfare, no ego, just resolve. Later, as she stepped out of the cockpit, sand clinging to her boots and sweat streaking her brow, the weight of the moment settled in. She had faced her past doubts, the fear that had lingered since her first failed mission, and emerged victorious. Her courage had not been flashy, it had been deliberate, grounded, and unwavering. She realized that bravery wasn't about recognition, it was about action when the stakes were highest. Captain Donovan approached, offering a rare, firm smile. "Lieutenant Harper, you've got guts most of us couldn't even dream of," he said. Amelia simply nodded, letting the words settle. She had not done it for praise, but for the men whose lives had hung in the balance, for the principle that one person's decision can alter the course of many. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, Amelia stood alone for a moment, watching the dust clouds rise from the battlefield. She thought about the young pilots who had doubted themselves, the SEALs whose survival had depended on her precision, and the fear she had once carried like a stone in her chest. Now, it had been replaced by quiet confidence. She understood more than ever that courage was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Her story would ripple across the base, across missions, and perhaps across history. Not for the medals she might one day receive, but for the lesson it carried, that true courage is defined not by age, gender, or title, but by the willingness to step forward when the world doubts you. Every time she recalled the roar of engines, the smell of sand and gunpowder, the tension in her chest before every pull of the trigger, she remembered that moments of impossible stakes reveal the truest measure of a person. And the lesson resonated. Clearly, bravery is born in action. Responsibility is shouldered in moments of chaos, and belief in oneself can change outcomes that seem utterly hopeless. In a world that too often overlooks quiet skill and hidden talent, Amelia Ace Harper had shown that the sky itself could not contain someone determined to rise. She had proven that limits were meant to be challenged, doubts meant to be confronted, and courage meant to be chosen, every single time it was required. The night air hung heavy over the rugged mountains of Afghanistan, the stars barely visible through the dust kicked up by distant explosions. Inside a forward operating base, Navy SEALs moved with tense precision, preparing for a critical mission. Among them, Captain Evelyn Viper Daniels adjusted her flight suit and checked her helmet. She appeared to be just another support staff officer, blending in with the world around her, quiet, competent, and often overlooked. But beneath the calm exterior, Viper's mind ran through tactical strategies, flight maneuvers, and combat. Protocols. She was trained, experienced, and ready, though few suspected it. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. Suddenly, the tension erupted into chaos. Over the radio, SEAL Captain Michael Murphy's voice rang urgent and strained. "We're under fire! We need air support immediately! Coordinates! Sent! Now!" The crisis was unmistakable. Without aerial cover, the SEAL team would be trapped in a fortified enemy compound. Lives were at risk, and failure was not an option. The base buzzed with panic, soldiers shouting and scrambling to respond, but no one stepped forward. Whispers of doubt spread among the personnel. "It's too dangerous," some muttered. Others exchanged fearful glances. Even Viper felt the shadow of hesitation creep in, remembering her first combat simulation where equipment failure almost cost her a mission. The memory of that moment, the fear, The near failure threatened to root her in place, but she pushed it aside. She had trained for this, more than anyone realized. With a deep breath, Viper rose, her voice calm but unwavering. "Captain Murphy, I'll take the flight." "I've flown combat sorties before." The room went silent. Eyes widened in shock. "Wait, Viper, you?" someone whispered. She wasn't a designated pilot for active combat missions, but her determination was clear. This was not arrogance. It was quiet confidence built on years of preparation, simulations, and real-world experience. The preparations began immediately. She moved to the hangar where the MH-60 Black Hawk helicopter waited, its rotors creaking against the desert night. Technicians hurried to check fuel, weapons systems, and avionics. Viper ran through pre-flight checks with meticulous care, ensuring targeting systems were accurate, weapons calibrated, and communication lines clear. The night was alive with tension, every sound amplified, the grinding of rotor blades, the click of switches, the distant hum of artillery. Breath slowed, focus sharpened. Time seemed to stretch as she mentally ran through every scenario, anticipating obstacles and enemy countermeasures. Engines roared to life, filling the night with vibrations that rattled bones and nerves alike. The helicopter lifted, the night sky swallowing them as they descended toward the hostile compound. Enemy fire erupted immediately, tracer rounds crisscrossing the sky, illuminating shadows of rock and sand. Viper maneuvered with precision, weaving between ridges, dipping low to avoid radar detection, and using the terrain as her shield. Her communication guided the SEALs. "Move left, stay low, I've got the northern approach covered." Each instruction was a lifeline, each maneuver a calculated risk. The decisive moment arrived when an enemy sniper had taken a critical SEAL outpost under fire. Viper had only seconds to react. She angled the helicopter, steadying against gusts and incoming bullets, and deployed precision rockets. Silence hung in the valley for a heartbeat, then a chain of explosions rocked the compound. The sniper position was neutralized, clearing a path for the SEALs to advance. The impossible had been achieved. Lives were saved. The mission could continue. Back at the base, disbelief and awe filled the air. Technicians, fellow pilots, and soldiers stared at the monitors showing the aftermath of the attack. Captain Murphy's voice broke over the radio, full of relief and amazement. "Viper, you just saved us all. I don't know how you did it, but thank you." The SEALs returned her nods through the comms, admiration and respect evident despite the chaos. Viper, however, remained composed, her eyes scanning the horizon as the dust from the battle swirled in the distance. "I trusted myself," she said quietly, letting the words settle among the chaos. No triumph, no showmanship, just a calm acknowledgement of necessity and skill. Hours later, as dawn broke over the mountains, Viper walked through the base, her uniform dusty, her boots worn from the night's mission. She recalled the moments of fear. The flash of gunfire, the uncertainty in the SEAL's eyes, and the knowledge that failure would have meant catastrophe. Yet she had acted. She had taken responsibility when the moment demanded courage, proving that readiness and determination could defy expectation. Her heart, still pounding, carried not fear, but clarity, a sense of accomplishment rooted in action, not recognition. Captain Murphy approached, shaking his head in disbelief, a smile breaking through his usual stoicism. "Viper, you're something else. Bravery doesn't even begin to describe this." She only nodded, understanding that the story wasn't about praise, but about results. She had stepped forward when no one else could, relied on her skills, and ensured survival for those who depended on her. Her quiet courage had changed the outcome, and in doing so, had redefined what it meant to rise under pressure. Later, alone in the hangar, Viper reflected on the night. The explosions, the heat of the rotors, the tension in her fingers as she gripped controls, All of it reminded her that bravery is not inherent, but chosen. It is the conscious decision to act when every rational instinct screams hesitation. She realized that courage is silent, humility is steady, and true leadership manifests in moments where stakes are highest and hope feels fleeting. As the sun fully emerged, painting the mountains in orange and gold, Viper looked over the valley she had just protected, the men she had guided, the mission she had ensured, and the fears she had conquered all melded into one lesson. Limits exist only until someone chooses to challenge them. The world often underestimates quiet determination, but when met with opportunity, those prepared to act can achieve the extraordinary. Her story would echo through the base, told in whispers and nods of respect. Young recruits would hear it and understand that heroism is not a matter of rank, gender, or visibility. It is a matter of action, resolve, and skill. Every fear faced, every moment of doubt confronted, was a chance to rise. Viper had proven that courage could manifest in the least expected form. A young woman stepping forward, believing in herself, and taking the flight that no one else dared to attempt. In the end, the takeaway was clear. Bravery is about choice. Responsibility is about action, and belief in oneself can turn impossible scenarios into victory. Evelyn Viper Daniels had shown that the sky could not contain her will, that fear could be mastered, and that extraordinary courage often comes from those quietly prepared to rise. She had changed the mission, saved lives, and rewritten what it meant to lead in moments of chaos. And as the base buzzed with life returning to routine, Viper knew that the night would forever remain a testament. The truest measure of courage is not in being seen, but in stepping forward when everything is on the line, trusting skill, training, and instinct over fear. In a world that often hesitates, those who act define history. The scorching desert winds of Iraq swept across the endless dunes, carrying the scent of sand, smoke, and distant gunfire. A Navy SEAL team crouched behind a rocky ridge, tension etched into every face. Among them, Lieutenant Kara Shadow. Thompson moved silently, checking her communications gear and scanning the horizon. She appeared to be just another support officer, blending in with the organized chaos of the forward operating base. Yet beneath her calm exterior lay years of intensive flight training, combat drills, and unrecognized missions that had honed her instincts and skills to razor-sharp precision. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. The calm shattered when urgent radio chatter pierced the night. Captain Jason Redmond's voice was tense, almost panicked. "We're trapped behind enemy lines. We need a combat pilot immediately. Coordinates sent." The stakes were clear. Without aerial support, the SEAL team would be cut down by a heavily armed enemy squad entrenched in the valley below. Immediate failure would mean death for dozens of soldiers, and the mission's success would crumble. Panic rippled through the team and the surrounding base. Men whispered doubts under their breath. "No one's taking that run. It's impossible." Even Kara felt the weight of fear gnaw at her. The memory of a previous mission where misjudging a low-altitude pass had nearly cost her a fellow pilot's life flashing before her eyes. Doubt threatened to freeze her, but the memory also sparked determination. She had trained for moments exactly like this. Then, she rose, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Captain Redmond, I'll take it. I've flown the A-10 on low-altitude sorties before." The room fell silent, disbelief evident in every glance. "Kara, are you serious?" one soldier asked. She didn't flinch. This was not arrogance. It was quiet certainty. A recognition that her skills were needed, and that hesitation now could cost lives. Preparations began immediately. Kara approached the hangar where the A-10 Thunderbolt waited, its formidable frame gleaming under the harsh lights. Mechanics checked her GAU-8 Avenger cannon, guided missiles and targeting systems with meticulous care. She double-checked communication, lines with the SEALs, ensuring real-time guidance would reach her cockpit. The night stretched, each second heavy with suspense. The roar of engines, the clicking of instruments, and the distant gunfire created a symphony of tension. Breath slowed. Time seemed suspended, each movement deliberate and weighty. As the engines rumbled to life, Kara's hands gripped the controls with practiced precision. The aircraft lifted off, cutting through the night sky, the desert below illuminated intermittently by flashes of enemy fire. Radar screens lit up with incoming threats, anti-aircraft positions, surface-to-air missiles, and mobile artillery. Kara's eyes scanned every instrument, every readout, every glint of radar, mentally calculating trajectories, angles, and escape routes. Every maneuver was deliberate. Every second was survival. She descended toward the SEAL position at dangerously low altitude, her plane skimming ridgelines and sand dunes, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. Her voice came steady and clear over the radio. "Move left! Take the northern ridge! I've got the southern flank covered!" The SEALs moved under her guidance, their survival dependent on her skill, focus, and composure. The air was thick, with tension, each heartbeat a countdown to potential catastrophe. The critical moment arrived when the enemy launched an ambush, targeting the SEALs' forward position with heavy machine guns and mortars. Kara lined up her attack run, hands steady on the throttle and targeting system. She released precision munitions, her aircraft maneuvering deftly between enemy fire. The explosions erupted in the valley, the deafening roar echoing off the mountains, neutralizing key threats. Silence followed, a brief tense pause as everyone processed the outcome. The SEALs were safe. Against impossible odds, she had succeeded. Back at the base, the reaction was a mixture of awe, relief, and disbelief. Technicians stared at the monitors, Captain Redmond's voice breaking over the radio with gratitude. "Kara, you did it. You saved every one of them. I don't know how you managed that, but thank you." The SEALs themselves shook their heads, exchanging stunned glances before finally breaking into cheers of admiration. Kara remained grounded, her hands slowly, relaxing from the controls. "I trusted myself," she said simply, her voice carrying quiet humility over the comms. No celebration, no fanfare, only the calm acceptance of responsibility fulfilled. A's dawn broke over the desert. Kara walked through the hangar, dust clinging to her flight suit and sweat streaking her face. She replayed the moments of the night, the enemy fire, the desperate maneuvers, the fear that had crept into her chest, and the skill that had pulled her through. Each memory was a testament to preparation, training, and unwavering focus. She realized that courage is not born from fearlessness, but from the conscious decision to act despite fear. Captain Redmond approached, his usual stoicism softened by genuine respect. "Shadow, you've got guts most of us could only imagine," he said. Kara nodded, acknowledging the words but not needing them. The mission had been successful. Lives had been saved, and that was recognition enough. She had stepped into the impossible and emerged not for glory, but because it was necessary. Alone later, Kara reflected on the night, the A-10 now silent in its hangar. She thought about the SEALs she had guided, the lives that had depended on, split-second decisions, and the fear that had once threatened to hold her back. But now, that fear had been transformed into precision, courage, and skill. She understood that true heroism is often quiet, measured, and grounded in preparation. The difference between failure and survival could hinge on a single choice, a decision to rise when others hesitate. The sun's rays crested the mountains, casting long shadows over the desert and illuminating the SEALs as they resumed their positions. Kara watched from the hangar, understanding that her actions had not only altered the night's outcome, but had also left a lasting lesson. Limits are meant to be tested. Courage is a conscious choice, and belief in oneself can turn the impossible into reality. Her story would travel among the troops, whispered in mess halls and recounted in briefings, a reminder that extraordinary outcomes are possible when determination meets opportunity. In the end, the lesson was unmistakable. Bravery is a choice. Responsibility is action, and self-belief is a weapon against despair. Kara Shadow Thompson had faced overwhelming odds, guided a team through deadly terrain, and proven that courage is not measured by recognition, rank, or visibility, but by the willingness to act when the world expects hesitation. The sky, the mountains, and the seals themselves bore witness to her triumph, and the memory of that night would inspire those who followed. And as the desert settled into calm, Kara knew the night had proven something fundamental. Heroism is not flashy or loud. It is deliberate, precise, and often unseen. True courage manifests in the willingness to act despite fear, in the ability to trust training and instinct when stakes are at their highest. Kara had risen, guided by skill, focus, and unwavering resolve, showing that limits exist only until someone chooses to challenge them. The impossible, when met with preparation and determination, becomes achievable.